Welcome to Forward Focus. In each episode, we're helping you take one step toward becoming a more effective, well-rounded leader. I'm your host, Jon Reusch, and in today's episode, I'm interviewing Willie Davis, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and somebody that is crystal clear on the core values that he aspires to follow and how those manifest in his businesses and in his relationships with others. I'm so excited for you to check out this conversation and how it can apply to you as you're making tough decisions to grow yourself or your business. So without further ado, check this out. Mr. Willie Davis, how we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being in studio today. I'm pumped to catch up with you and chat a little bit about your life, your story, and some lessons that absolutely come with that. You're one of the most eclectic individuals I've met and have, 4 years ago we met?
About 4, yeah.
And you've stood out since, just as somebody that I think is a great entrepreneur. You're a philanthropist. You're somebody that is, pun intended, forward focused on living a big life. And I think that's really cool.
Yes, no, I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here too, and in your new studio as well.
Yeah, you're right. You're the first interview, so you've helped us crack that open. I appreciate it. So Let's get right into it.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about who's Willie Davis? Just give us the 90-second overview of how we're sitting here today.
Yes. Willie Davis, he is a real estate entrepreneur, an agent here in Metro Detroit. He is a new fiance to an amazing woman. Thank you. Thank you. It's my fiance, Anna. But also he's a family man, and he is the type of person, I guess I'll stop talking in third person. But I'm the type of person who I'm goal oriented, and my goals and my purpose was revealed to me a few years ago. And once it was, and that's helping people. And once it was revealed to me, I've made it my purpose to walk into that and press into that. So a lot of the things that I've done and that we'll probably talk about today, kind of all funnels through that. We're
absolutely going to get to that point, because I think that was a crossroad in your life, and it's something that looking back is clearer than day. But when you were actually there at that moment, you had a lot of decisions to make, right?
I did.
We're going to definitely build to that. So you're somebody that is involved in your podcast. Let's hit on that first. What's Absolutely. On the Verge all about?
Yeah, so my podcast On the Verge, I do it with my really good friend Tammy McQueen. She's based out of Atlanta. And this idea came to me at the end of 2019. We both had pretty rough years in business and some personal life things. And I remember in December I was driving and I called her and I said, Tammy, I think we should do a podcast. And I said, we have a story to tell. We've been having these conversations all through the year. So I said, I know there's somebody out there that is going through the same thing. And I want somebody else out there to know that they're not alone. One of my biggest philosophies is once you learn the lesson, you have a responsibility to teach it to someone else. So whether that's entrepreneurship, personal life, relationships, goals, anything, and whatever it may be. So when I told her about it, she was thrilled, and I find it therapeutic just talking about things.
Sure.
And we launched it March 2020, and during the pandemic, and it was one of those things too where I was like, we're at home doing nothing, like just let's do it. We kind of planned it out, and we just started having discussions about our early days in entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. We both started May 2017, and it's been a roller coaster since. And On the Verge, and how I came up with this title, it's for people who are on the verge of getting into entrepreneurship, or maybe those first few years where you're kind of debating if you want to get back out of it, because it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
So we're kind of focusing on those 5-6 years before and after you make that jump. And actually a Gary V book, crushing it. I was driving to Florida from Atlanta back in February, and listening to his book, his audio book, it made me, I said, On the Verge. I said, that's the title, So So we're very happy about the podcast, and also, we've been able to talk about some other current events too.
Yeah.
Over the summer, when we, a lot of the racial unrest that was going on around the country. So her and I, we did a couple episodes about that, and I'm fortunate and grateful that I myself, as a Black man, was able to have a platform that I've created myself to be able to tell my story, my perspective. So that was some things that we had discussed as well.
I think that's really powerful. And I actually caught a couple of those episodes. And what I appreciated about those specifically last summer was twofold. Number one is you opened up the dialogue and conversation.
Yes.
I think sometimes as a white male, I don't always know where to begin.
Yes.
I don't know where the line is or where I'm allowed to talk or not in my own head, right? This is something that I've built. And so you had some very specific dialogue and conversation in those episodes around it's okay to have the conversation. It's okay to come from curiosity.
Yes.
But you also had that line of you didn't preach this, but it's essentially not making blanket statements, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Getting to know people for who they are and their story. And that the theme, I guess, is that we all have a lens that we view the world.
Yes.
And that lens is truth until you have somebody else's reality wake your truth up. That's essentially what I took from it. I don't know if that's a good synopsis, but
no, and I think that's true. And when we released the episodes, after the fact, I had a couple of friends that I've known since middle school, elementary school, that reached out to me and said, wow, like almost as if, and I said this to my sister, I said, having those conversations felt like I was telling people for the first time that I'm Black.
Wow.
Because race is never, I've grown up in a pretty diverse area, so race was never always the driving force, if you will. As a Black man, I'm always aware of it, but
of course. Yeah.
But me being able to tell my story in a way where it was just a stream of conscious.
Yeah.
And actually, little fun fact, that was never supposed to be the podcast episode.
Oh, really?
The very first question Tammy asked me, my co-host, she says, "How are you feeling?" That was just our pre-recording chat.
Warming up. Yeah.
And it just went from there. And I said, okay, well, that's the episode. But I had some friends after the fact reach out to me and was able to understand for the first time that we've been friends, my perspective on that. And I think that made our friendships better, but it also made them more comfortable being able to talk about it. One of the things I say to people, they say, okay, if we're going to have the conversation, or what do you say to somebody to have the conversation? I can't, you as a white man, I can't say to you, if you want to talk about something or, bring up the conversation and dialogue, but then bite your head off if you say something wrong, right, or if you don't know something.
Sure.
And, in some cases. So I can't invite people to the table and not talk with them.
Right.
As long as you're coming from a good place.
Sure.
And that was really the main theme of it. Let's have a national conversation starting here and see where it takes us.
And I think that's really relevant as we kick off today's conversation, because that is the dynamic we're in right now. And it's something that really has never not been there.
Yes.
It was swept under rugs. It was ignored. It was put in a corner, whatever analogy you want to use. And I want to highlight something before real estate. And as I was kind of growing my career and my experiences and background, I don't know if you recall this, but I actually worked in partnership with United Way, and I worked as an AmeriCorps volunteer. And it was with this college access program at Central Michigan University, Fire Up Chips. And it worked with folks from all walks of life, rural, urban, different levels of socioeconomic status. And I happened to be working in Detroit that week, and was touring different high schools, giving talks on the importance of education and how it unlocks opportunity, and how the power of education plus a plan around using goals to increase wealth and increase money, right? Because there's a lot of communities that I've worked in where, rent is the mortgage, like paying the rent, that's the norm. And So anyways, I walked into this high school, and it was the first time from my privileged background. I walked in, and there was about 400 people in the auditorium. I was the only white person.
Yeah.
And it was the first moment in my life that I realized and was consciously aware of my ethnicity and race. It was the first time I had, and I was probably 21.
Yes.
And how privileged I am for that to be the first time for me to be aware of it.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a big moment for me. And it's something that I look back consistently. You feel eyes on you, right? Yeah. And so the lesson from that is that we all have a story. We all have a lens. And if you're coming to the conversations honest and authentic,
absolutely,
and from curiosity instead of from judgment or from biases, I think that's the key, right? And we saw both ends of the spectrum over the last couple of years. Yeah. And I think we're now trending in the right direction. Yes. But only time will tell, right? And there's still, of course, a ton of work to be done.
Absolutely. You know, I've had many conversations. My good friend lives in California. He works in tech. He's got a master's degree. He works for AWS, Amazon Web Services. Very successful homeowner, drives a great car, all of these things. And him and I have both been on the same walk of life, if you will, over the last, I think, probably 15 years that we've been good friends. And no matter how much success that we get, you know, there is still a conversation that him and I have to have that, you know, you can be, no matter how educated you are, no matter how successful, how much money you have or whatnot, we can still walk into a room and somebody in there might just see us as a black man. You know, not to every room, but that's something that we have to be mindful of, right? At times. And it's not the thing that leads me and drives me, and you know, it doesn't hold me back from anything. But I also can't be surprised if just so happen today I walk into a room and somebody in that room just sees me as a black man. Right. Right. I'm just like, okay, you know, it can't be like, oh, it's 2021. Why there's still somebody or something out there.
Right, because you're what we just started the podcast with. You're an entrepreneur, you're a philanthropist, you're a fiance, you are a black man, but that's not just who you are. No, that's absolutely a piece of your identity. Yes. And for some reason that's something
for some people, and it's a small group, but yes. So that's why I don't let them, you know, be the ones that dictate what I do. Yeah. They haven't stopped me yet.
Yeah, exactly. You're continuing to climb. So you worked with Volkswagen previously.
Yes. Gosh, what year is this? 2021. So back in 2006, when I started corporate America, I started for Volkswagen and Audi. Volkswagen and Audi of America, working in product planning and marketing, auto shows. And I loved working in the automotive industry, and I kind of went most of my 10 plus years in corporate America and marketing, working in automotive, a little technology, a little retail. And then in 2015, I became the marketing manager for Auto Week magazine.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yes, and working with Dutch Mandel, he was, you know, as someone who's worked in automotive, and even before I worked in automotive, just somebody who loves the automotive industry and loves cars, I had always not necessarily even dreamed about meeting him, because that just seemed so far off. But I always watched him and listened to him and clung to every word that he said, and then to be able to end my corporate America years working with him and under the direction of him was amazing.
So you have this good gig.
Yes.
You know, you're thriving. You're now you're 30 years old, give or take.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
I think so. Yeah.
And you're on this trip. So now I want to get to that crossroads moment.
Absolutely.
You take a trip, and what's the aha you had?
So even a few months before that trip, I just turned 30. And I remember driving to work one day. I was driving down I-75, and in that morning rush hour traffic, and seeing the same cars every morning. And I just said to myself, I can't do this routine, this thing. I can't see myself doing this for another 5-10 years. So like
let alone 25 years.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd look in some cars next to me and I was like, I'm sure this guy he's about to celebrate his 21st anniversary at his job. So this was beginning of 2016. So I said, by the end of 2017, I'm going to get out of corporate America. And I went, me and my good friend and a cousin of mine, we went to Cabo for a week. And
like in the spring of 16?
This was April 2016.
Okay, yep.
And we were at Cabo. And I remember that one evening we were all sitting on the beach and just talking about goals and stuff. And that was the first time I had verbally articulated my goal into the universe. And I said, I'm going to work for myself. And I want to get into real estate. Even at that time, I didn't even know what kind of real estate. I'm thinking maybe investment. So I'm going to get into real estate. I want to work for myself, and I want to have my own brand. I need to do things my way. And it was just something about me saying it then in that place where I could feel it. I believed, I was like, this is more than just words. And from that moment, I started putting effort toward it. End of that year, I got my real estate license. And then May 2017, I started interviewing and becoming a part-time real estate agent.
So you chose real estate as your out.
Yes, I chose real estate. Well, so we were actually, me and my friend, we were actually thinking about doing investment real estate. So like buying and flipping, it was like, oh, quick bucks. And we were kind of reading up on that a little bit. But we were still a little ways away from, putting our money where our mouth is. That December, I was walking my dog, and, one of those cold December nights where the air is still. I remember saying to myself, there's absolutely nothing else to do right now. Let me get my real estate license. So I only got it to have it in my back pocket because I still think I'm going to do investment real estate. Then I got the license and I started interviewing, and to my surprise, I enjoyed being a real estate agent. I enjoyed that relationship I was building with people. But even at that time in the beginning, I didn't even realize the full potential of it all.
Sure, of course. I
just knew, well, this is what I'm going to do, not to work my 9 to 5 anymore. Right. And then I worked about 6 months in real estate, both of them. And my goal, I said, okay, December 2017, it's coming. I'm going to get out. And it's kind of like double dutch, where you're trying to find that right time to jump in. But on September 6th, 2017, I'm sitting at my desk. It's 9:45 in the morning. I'm at my office, and the phone rings, and it says HR conference room. So I pushed myself from my desk, and I said, well, I guess it's today. I had no idea that was going to happen, but when HR calls your desk, there's only one way you're going.
Right.
So I went to HR. My boss was sitting there, and I'm the HR manager, and my boss is talking, and her and I were very friendly. We would meet up for coffee and everything after I left. But she said, do the budget cuts and the whole spiel. Effective immediately, the marketing manager position is being eliminated.
Wow.
But here's the funny thing: as she's saying that, a weight was lifted off my shoulder, and I remember, I think I smiled or something, and she said, "Any questions?" I said, "No," because in my head, I kept saying, I'm a full-time real estate agent now. I'm a full-time real estate. I meet in the conference room with HR, I had switched. I made the switch before I signed my COBRA paperwork and my exit paperwork and all of that. The HR manager is going over the paperwork, and she stops and she says, you are taking this very well. And I said, well, I said, I got something lined up.
Right.
And I left the office. I was out of the building probably by 10:15, 10:30, and I immediately went to my broker's office, walked into his office, and I said, I'm a full-time real estate agent. Let's go. And by noon, I called my, then girlfriend, and I said, I got amazing news. I got laid off today, and I'm a full-time real estate agent. I was just right in that momentum. And
yeah, for sure.
I got home at noon, and I switched everything. Willie Davis Realtor, that day you would have no idea that I had 12 years in corporate America.
Yeah.
Because I got rid of it.
So there's a couple themes I want to pull out from what you've already shared with, and I didn't know the at 9:45 a.m. that call came in, right? Mm-hmm. You said something a little earlier, and it ties in again to what you just said there.
Yes.
Our feelings lead to thoughts. Our thoughts lead to words. Mm-hmm. Our words lead to actions, and our actions lead to habits.
Yes.
And so you were feeling disturbed a little bit, driving to work each day about this restlessness, right?
Yes.
And then you began to have thoughts of, I don't want to be doing this the next 5 to 10 years, let alone 20.
Yes.
And then, but you internalized it, and maybe you wrote them down somewhere, but it wasn't until Cabo where you actualized it and you put it into words.
Yes.
And when you state something, now it becomes an accountability with someone else, and it's out there. And then you began to take action. You got your license, different things, and you built this habit of self-talk positive of, I'm going to make this work. It's going to work. I'm going to succeed. So I just want to highlight feelings to thoughts to words to actions to habits.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, and this is more of a joke, but from Cabo to conference room. That should be a podcast title.
From Cabo to conference room.
Yeah, from Cabo. I'm telling you, that's a great, anyways, that's just a little bit more of alliteration. But so because of that, now you've built, you take this jump, you're full-time, and you keep talking about wanting to build your brand, right? What's important to you about building a brand as you're leading these different enterprises you're a part of?
The first brand, if you will, that I began was Willie Davis Realtor, and being a real estate agent, and even in that first 6 months or a year, I'm still trying to get my feet, because I was doing it part-time.
Sure.
And I was a brand marketing manager for a publication. I never felt comfortable really promoting myself as a real estate agent. So that was one of the first switches that I made,
from company alone or brand alone to actually yourself as the brand.
Absolutely.
Right?
So I'm like, everything that I've learned and have been applying the last 10, 12 years for other organizations, I'm going to do for myself. And I began to do that. Then 2018 was my first full year and full-time year in real estate, and business was great. And I started to get my footing, and but I felt like I was still in some ways chasing things that had nothing to do with my goals. In real estate, it's very easy to get pulled into all of these networking events.
Shiny objects.
Yes, exactly. Whether it be with the lender or a title company or happy hours just because the day ends with Y. Just, anything like that. But that rough year that I had in 2019, and I think it's because I didn't have certain strategies in place in that previous year. It was a successful year.
Right.
I had a lot of business, money was good, whatever, but I didn't have that good foundation, if you will. So I needed 2019. I needed that year to remind me it always doesn't come that easy. Yeah. I needed that year to knock me down a little bit and say, okay, let's get back to the basics. And we had the pandemic in 2020. I didn't want to be that basic, but but the amazing thing about that was because I had rid myself of a bunch of stuff that had nothing to do with my goals, all those distractions. One of the first things I did for my business in the beginning of last year, I started working with a transaction coordinator. And when you don't have a lot of files or deals coming through as an agent, sometimes you say, well, I don't want to spend a couple $100 more dollars out of a transaction.
Got it.
But the beautiful thing about that, though, was if you don't take the time to invest in those processes and procedures or assistance, if you will, then your business will never be set up for that influx of business. So the fact that I started working as a transaction coordinator when I only at the beginning of the year, toward the end of 2019, just had one deal that was working, paid her what I paid her on the deal. But then her and I had a process which made easy for other things to kind of flow through and everything. Then when I was home in March and April doing nothing else, I said, I can't sit here and just watch Netflix. I can't. So I bought a Mac computer off a friend for $400. And I said, I'm going to create video and content. And I'm going to do my own editing with iMovie. I said, I have an iPhone, and I bought mics, and I started my podcast. I started creating video content and everything because I said, not only do I want to be known something, I have something to say. And I said, I don't know how long we're all going to be sitting on the couch, but when they let us out, when business opens back up and real estate opens back up, I'm going to be ready.
Yep.
And I was ready.
Yep.
And then throughout the year, I really started to hone in on what I want my brand to be. You know, I have Willie J. Davis, which is just my overall brand, who I am. And then from there, I have my podcast and I have my real estate, Willie Davis Realtor. So all three of those things, I want them all to mean the same with different types of content.
Yeah, in their own mediums.
Yeah, in their own mediums.
Exactly.
Yes, we all have this. We all have the same core values because it's who I am at the core.
Right.
Whether it be growth, and growing from yesterday, growing from the past, and to make tomorrow better. So if I'm relaying some content or information to my clients, or if a podcast episode or something about growth from me, and family, I'm a family man. So when I'm working with my clients, I have to let them know, it's like, we're in this together. We don't always get to choose our family, and sometimes we don't always get to choose our clients, but we're going to be in this together,
right.
And then bold, I'm the type of person, and this was something early on, even in real estate, I think that I did recognize about myself. I will take on any challenge, because what I also began to realize is a lot of clients that were coming to me, they got a bunch of no's before they got to me. They got a no from a lender. They got a no from another agent, maybe because their budget wasn't high enough.
Right.
And I put them in place with people who gave them yeses.
Right.
It were all of these things, and I said, okay, this is what my brand is about. And let me massage it, and let me just focus on this. And if it doesn't fall into what I want my brand to be, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
Even if that means a partnership or lack thereof or whatnot.
And when I hear there, to pull that theme out is every time you say no to something, you're saying yes to yourself.
Yes.
And if you're super clear on what that yes is, it's easier, right?
Yes, it is.
And you just talked about, in our pre-interviews, we had talked about growth, family, bold, and also team and teamwork, right? And you just talked so nicely about working with, your lenders and other business affiliates to be able to say yes.
Absolutely.
Right. And that I think is absolutely critical. The last thing too that you described is this movement from entrepreneurial to purposeful.
Yes.
And so we all have the same 24 hours. What I noticed about what you were talking about with the transaction coordinator specifically, and for our audience, where in your business, where in your role, in your job or career, can you leverage yourself? Yeah. That's essentially what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
It's not that you can't do the task.
Oh yeah, I was doing it before her.
It's preparing you for what's next. And the analogy I'd like to give on that, it's almost like if Amazon Web Services, you mentioned them earlier, if they didn't invest in cloud computing and artificial intelligence, there is no way that Willie J. Davis or Jon Reusch gets 2-day prime shipping today.
Absolutely.
Are we glad they did that?
Yes. And sometimes you get in a day.
Well, sometimes it's same day. They do groceries in 2 hours now.
Absolutely.
So, but my point is 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and they have shareholders and they're a publicly traded company, of course, but there could be people, I would say, stay in your lane, Amazon Web, focus on what you're doing, and that's basically an online bookstore.
Yes.
To today, where with artificial intelligence in the cloud, they are the go-to resource. Google is a distant second for intel and information. The NFL uses that. I mean, you name any Fortune 500 company or enterprise, and they're using Amazon at some level. And so it's the forethought. If they're going to eventually give us packages via drone, which is coming, right?
It is.
It's already here in beta. They need to start investing in building that enterprise 4 years ago. And, I think the other theme to all of that, so that's that idea of being entrepreneurial to purposeful. Amazon has a 100-year plan.
Yes.
They have a 100-year vision. How many of us small business owners have a 1-year plan, let alone a 100-year plan, right?
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you on that?
No, it absolutely does. And then, when you were talking about team, and even with my transaction coordinator, she is not only, I don't even look at it as she works for me. I look at it, we've become friends. we talk multiple times a week, even if it's not about a transaction or whatnot. We're really checking in with each other because her well-being affects my business. My well-being affects how we interact with each other. But also, she has taken things off my plate, which does open me up to get other business.
Right.
If I get a purchase agreement that comes through a bottom line, I don't have to spend an hour pulling all contact information together to get it all into one email to introduce everybody. She does the follow-up or things like that. And I can handle, the big problems and the big fish or the big issues that might come up.
The analogy I like to give to that is if you get a call, right? And it's like the Ritz-Carlton. If you call the front desk at any Ritz-Carlton in the world, the phone does not go to voicemail, ever.
Yes.
It's always answered. In the same way, if I'm a real estate agent or a small business owner, any moment you don't have leverage around you to help give great customer service, which is essentially the genesis of why you would do this, right? It's great service. That's the key. That builds lifelong relationships and referrals, etc. There's a lesson to be had there in what the Ritz does. You will not get a voicemail. Somebody will answer and welcome you and greet you and help you solve your problem, right? And it's essentially what you're doing. You're freeing yourself up for the right activities. You're not freeing yourself up. There might be a day where you want to watch some Netflix or relax, but overall, you're freeing yourself up to focus on the other activities to build a world-class brand. Is that a good way to summarize that?
No, I believe it. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I love that. Essentially, what I'm hearing is this theme in your leadership journey as you're starting to lead some of these people, right? Not only your clients, but your transaction coordinator and your co-podcast host. You guys are co-leaders.
Yes, absolutely.
This idea of sink or swim.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. Like you seem, the vibe I'm getting the first few minutes of our talk is I'm an all or nothing kind of guy.
Yes.
What's a moment or a memory that you have around sink or swim that you apply today in your lessons of business and entrepreneurship?
I remember I was in middle school and we're a gym class, and I think it was like a swim day or something. And this particular day, my swim teacher didn't get in the pool, but we were diving off the deep end, dive and push yourself off the bottom, come back to the top. And I'm doing dives or whatever. But this one particular dive I did, I didn't come back up or as quickly as I was hoping to. So I started to panic.
Sure.
And I just remember, I don't know where I was in the pool, but I just remember his leg pulling, because he had an ear infection, so he didn't get in the pool. But I remember him sticking out his leg, so I grabbed onto his leg to pull me in. And in that moment, I said, I almost drowned, so I have to teach myself how to swim.
Wow.
And even though that was a gym, swim class, but I basically took the responsibility off the teacher and put it on me. I said, yes, his job is to teach me, but that's too much responsibility for someone else. In order for me to live or me to be successful, I have to put the responsibility on myself. And I think that was definitely the first, experience I ever had. And it's pretty literal, but
yeah. Well, and how can you apply that? How does that analogy apply to business? Yeah. Because oftentimes, I don't know, I hear people say, well, I can't because. I can't do this because. I'm not able to because, and there's always a projection in those conversations on there's an outside force stopping me.
Yes.
How do you check yourself on that and say, I have control of this and I'm going to focus on what I can control? Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. It's something I have to intentionally practice at times. It happened to me this morning. I was, on LinkedIn and kind of sending some messages, and I was going to ask somebody, to appear someplace. And I remember sitting there and I said, just ask. I said to myself, just ask, and I'm like, okay, and we kind of started a dialogue. But yeah, you have to move your fears out of the way. And I get scared at times too.
Sure.
Everybody does, especially if you present me with a roller coaster. But I also have gotten to the point where if I don't ask, I'll never get a yes.
Right.
And then even with my own brand and my own business, and talk about that responsibility. Over the years in real estate, I've partnered up with people before, and it's not that they've been bad partnerships or anything. I'm still friends with some of the people I've, partnered up, whether it be deals or, entire years. But I realized in that partnership, I could not give somebody else the responsibility to uphold my values. My values are personal to me. Mm-hmm. So, and I want my values to represent my brand. So I can't have somebody else, as in my real estate business, if they're personal to me, I can't fault you for not reaching them.
We talk a lot about values here at Forward Focused, core values specifically, and every single day, our own personal core values at some level are at odds with something.
Yes.
It could be the organization we're a part of. It could be somebody we run into, admire. Okay. And it could be anywhere in between.
Yes.
And so the clarity I hear from you is I know what my core values are and I know what I stand for.
Yes. That's
a big deal.
It is.
There's a lot of small business owners who are looking to launch, looking to scale, looking to grow. My pledge to them, or my encouragement, is take a moment and walk through your core values exercise, whittle down what your true core values are.
Yes.
You're very intentional with choosing growth as a word, for example.
Yes.
To somebody else that might mean opportunity, right? So what are your core values? How do you defend that? And can you put it on a half sheet paper? Can you put it into your elevator pitch? Yeah. Does your team, does your organization believe that? One of my favorite quotes, it's not necessarily just a quote, but it's basically, well, I don't necessarily believe that about what you're saying about this person because my interactions with him or her have never been that way.
Yes.
Right? He or she lives and breathes, insert whatever it is. And so I just wanted to kind of land that for the audience too, that if you're hearing this and you're inspired by Willie at any level, start by thinking to yourself, what would it look like if I had clarity on my values and I had them publicly posted somewhere, whether that's at your house on a corkboard, whether it's on your dashboard in your car, whether it's on your phone as a screensaver, or maybe it's on a front-facing website. Absolutely. Where people can see who you stand for and why. And
even, going back to one of the points you just made about, the values, even the goals too. One of the things I used to do, I haven't done it this year yet, but I would write my goals down and then I'd print them, I'd sign it, put it in a frame on my desk.
Got it.
So I'm holding myself accountable. And every time I'm at my desk, I'm seeing, and the fact that I take the effort to sign it, that's like my stamp of approval.
It's a covenant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a contract to myself. And every year I've done that, I've achieved or exceeded many of those goals.
Let's shift gears here into the impact some leaders have had on your life, right?
Yes.
In our pre-interview, you talked about your broker and you also talked about your fiance.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about what you get out of both of those relationships specifically in your growth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My broker, Ryan Kelly, we're about the same age. He's married, has kids, but when we talk, I see my future self in him, and I see somebody who has made many sacrifices to get where he is as well. He's got that sink or swim mentality too. Him and I have discussed this story many times of when he started the brokerage and in the offices and using wedding money, the last bit of money he had to do something, wasn't sure if it was going to work or whatever. But family also is important to him like it is with me. And with my fiance, we met during the pandemic. So during that time, we've had nothing to do but be able to talk and really connect and get to know each other. But she's been very impactful because she keeps me grounded.
Yeah.
No matter what the opportunity may be, she's the first level of filter, if you will, that I have when I'm making a decision. If an opportunity comes, like, okay, will Anna be on board with this? And if it's not her thing, especially in real estate, some of these things I do is far removed from her, but I'll say, okay, how will she feel about this? Or how will she feel about me doing this? And how can we still stay connected while I'm doing this? And if she's not on board with it, or if this is going to pull us further apart, then it's not for me. Because like I said, one of my core values is family.
Right.
So just being grounded, and when you're presented with opportunities where, working in real estate, it can be very easy to, whether it be big commission checks or opportunity or just whatever, So being able to, stay grounded and keeping our goals, her and I's goals together at the forefront. And those are the first priority, and everything else falls in line behind that. And
I think that's critical there. And once again, you just highlighted the importance of core values, because you just talked about growth and family from your broker, who's a leader and mentor you aspire to be and look toward. And you also talked about in your personal world. Yes. So I really want to highlight that theme, because you keep coming back to that. And I think that's critical for people to have some clarity on that. And remember, it's not an activity you do just once. It's a living and breathing mechanism that you consistently analyze. And you ask yourself and assess, are these goals of values I want, or am I actually living these out? There's a big difference there, right?
Yes.
Like, I could say I'm a marathon runner, or I could say I aspire to be a marathon. There's a big difference. It's one word in a sentence, but there's a lot of energy, sweat, blood, tears, pain, growth that comes in actually running a marathon versus saying I'm aspiring to be.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm not aspiring to be a marathon runner.
Me neither.
Yes.
At one point, I think I was there, but you talked, I want to switch gears again here. You talked earlier about characteristics that you look for in a leader. And the number one characteristic that stuck out to you was empathy.
Yes.
Talk to me about why you chose empathy.
One of the things that in all the leaders that I've had over the years, from my current broker to all my years in corporate America, what's made me stay at those jobs or continue to work for those leaders was that empathy that they've had for me in various times. I go back to my broker, and, over the 4 years I've been with, my broker at Remax, there have been times when they have had my back on things. But there have also been times I've been able to come and have a raw, honest conversation and let them know, this is what's going on. This is what I need to do. This is how it is. And them being able to empathize and understand and put themselves in my shoes. I think, it's one thing to be a leader and, giving out orders. And first of all, I don't even think that's the leader always. But
that's a boss.
Yeah, I know. But that's what some people feel a leader is.
Yeah.
But if your employees or the people that you work with or work for, or that work with you or for you, can't come into your office, sit at your desk and say, hey, this is what's going on. I'm having an issue with this transaction, or this is what's going on in my personal life. Be able to have you as someone that can understand and that ear to listen to what's going on, then what's the point?
Right. And the idea that I wrote down here, I got your six.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big military reference.
Absolutely.
And it's, I got your back, right? I got your six. So
yeah.
I love that. And I think that's critical. Let's talk a little bit about when you talk about having your back and you talk about growth as an organization. Are there any resources you could point people to, whether it's books or speakers, that you aspire to or look to that could help somebody grow their skill sets in either making a jump, being committed to an entrepreneurial type role, growing their leadership ability? Are there any resources or books that come to mind?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The first thing I would say is get a mentor. First and foremost. And that mentor is going to be somebody who is already where you want to be, or at least has made it down the road. It's not someone who just coming out of their real estate license, class like you are. But yeah, get that mentor, and that person you feel comfortable talking with, picking their brain, that maybe you want to shadow, you check in, or anything like that. Another resource that I really enjoy, Ryan Serhant. I subscribe to his YouTube page. I've done some of his courses. But the thing I really like about him too is, one, family is important to him as well, but also he's got that sink or swim mentality too. And sometimes even with that mentality, you need a pep talk. You still need somebody to tell you to, get off your behind and go out and do it. And he's just has a bold brand. And even though he's in New York, there's a lot of things that I can apply to my own business too. And there's a lot of things that I have, and how I interact with my clients, how I follow up with my clients and things like that. So what I would say, find yourself a mentor. And, I like Ryan Serhant, but find yourself, no matter what industry that you're in, find that person in that industry that you wouldn't mind following their journey and listening to, whether it be books or their podcasts or anything like that.
Right. And he has a book called Sell It Like Serhant.
Yeah, Sell It Like Serhant. Yep. He's got another one that just came out, Big Money Energy, that I'm listening to an audiobook right now in the car.
The way I would just kind of wrap up what you just said there is, number one, you want boots on the ground that are, they're going to be elbow to elbow with you in your partnership as a mentor, right?
Yes.
They're already been where you want to go, or they're tracking there, but they can come back. It's that John Maxwell quote that leaders are, far enough ahead to see, yet close enough to relate.
Yes.
And so that's the first thing I hear. And then secondly is find your North Star in the industry.
Yes.
Find your true north that you're looking for, that you can emulate at an international or national level to really hit it big, right? Those are, maybe silly analogies, but
that's 100% true.
Right.
Yes.
And then of course, looking for books, podcasts. So we heard Sell It Like Serhant and Big Money Energy. And then earlier you said Crushing It by Gary V.
Yeah, Gary V. Like I said, I listened to that book. And in that book is how the idea, the title of my podcast came.
Is that book? I haven't read that book. Is that?
It's an audio book that I do audiobooks. I'm in the car so much.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. Yeah. A lot of our listeners listen to Forward Focus podcast on audio too. So is essentially the Crushing It book, is that basically how to crush your life and business goals and taking that leap?
Yes. About taking that leap. One of the things I liked about the book is it tells their backstory, kind of what they were doing before, and then what they did to crush it, to kind of help take themselves to the next level. So
yeah, I love that. And that's called goal setting to the now.
Yeah.
If you want to go make $100,000 a year, right? Well, you're not going to make $100,000 a year unless you chunk down the right activities and the right focus each week to make the monthly, the quarterly, right? And then you get to that $100,000 amount, and it's something you build toward. What's one final word to the wise that you may want to share, or that you didn't mention today, or just something that's on your mind that you want to put out there for the universe?
Word to the wise. One of the things I think, I said earlier, like when my purpose was revealed to me in 2018, and it was about helping people. And everything that I do in my real estate business and my podcast, any motivational video or interviews or anything that I do, I want to make sure it's bringing value to somebody and it's helping somebody. And before I record a podcast episode, before I do an interview, before I am a subject matter expert on whatever, I pray. And I pray that what I am saying will bring value to somebody. And I'm just a vessel. And at the end of it all, I just want people to know I did my best with what I had.
I love that. It's a privilege, and it's an honor to get into the mind of Willie a little bit and hear your story and your background and why you are and where you are today. Right? It's been a lot of fun today, and I hope we can do it again at some point. And if it's ever fitting, I'll check out your On the Verge, and maybe there's something there that we could do. But it's been a privilege. I appreciate you.
I appreciate the honor. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks. A big thank you to Willie Davis for taking time out of his multiple hats that he wears to sit down with us. As a reminder, you can check out his podcast On the Verge, dropping new content on a regular basis. If you found value in today's content, please be sure to subscribe so you never miss a lesson to be the leader that you deserve to be. And until next time, lead on.